Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
The seat taken.
Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's Thanksgiving week.
Indeed, but when folks are listening to it, it's post-Thanksgiving.
It's post-Thanksgiving. So everybody's like, still enjoying those turkey leftovers, probably eating the turkey sandwich.
Now it's going to transition straight to Christmas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, our Christmas Spectacular's coming up. We've got
one of our favorite episodes to record, one of people's least favorite episodes to listen to.
Historically unpopular, but we keep doing it, and that's what that's the Out of Office model.
That's if we can record any longer. I know It seems like our reliable old platform for recording here is not living up to our old standards, Ryan.
Yeah, no, if there are podcasters listening to us who have better recording solutions than TriCast, let us know.
We've loved TriCast for so long. We went through horrible options beforehand. We've been so happy on TriCast for about 130 episodes.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the last 5 or 6 episodes, it has struggled to do its only job.
Not good. So, Ryan, are you going anywhere for Thanksgiving?
I am heading to Maryland tomorrow, the great Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Oh, my God. Dining to spend a holiday with your family.
That's
Look at
only
you maturing.
You gotta do it.
I'll be heading down. We got an Airbnb in New Haven for me and the family because Mom's house fills up with the other brothers and their families. So I have to do an offshoot. But I like New Haven, so I'm perfectly happy to set up camp there.
You drew the short stick.
No. They've got great coffee places, great pizza places. It's heaven.
You keep promising us a New Haven episode.
Yeah, let's put it on the calendar for early next year.
Okay.
But we're saying that'll be staying pretty close to home. Today, we are traveling quite far.
We are going really south to Asunción, Paraguay, which is, a city I never expected to visit. And I'm looking forward to sort of unpacking with folks today.
And when were you there?
I was there just a couple months ago on my end.
And what brought you there particularly?
So, I knew that I was going to be in Bogota, and I used that Google Flight tracker where you can basically look for affordable flights from whatever city on any kind of given date. And it gave me a few options, and a few I'd been to, and I'd never been to Asunción, and it was a good price. And I figured, hey, why not check out a new country?
Pretty cool. I can't wait to hear. I'm not very familiar with this city at all, so I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it's not a main travel destination, so it was interesting to visit and be in a place unlike Mexico City and Bogota, which are full of gringo American tourists.
Oh my God, Ryan, Mexico City, it's going to be full of gringo tourists, especially because it's finally got a 36 hours in the New York Times travel section this week.
I think between the 36 hours in the New York Times travel section and all the Twitter employees who have their severance, Mexico City is going to be very popular.
Yeah, and you every other week.
That's true. One other thing I want to say before we jump into our first ever promo, which is very exciting, is we have
Stay tuned.
We've been keeping up on the OOO podcast Instagram with lots of new posts for every episode. So if you haven't followed us, give us a follow on OOO podcast on Instagram and Elon Musk free social network.
For now. And it's kind of like, podcast. Like you're excited by what you see.
Yeah. And I have to say, I do a little more posting than Kiernan, so you see a lot more of my face. But, why don't you guys comment? Like, where's Kiernan? And
you don't post that much of your face on the Instagram.
More than folks want, probably. But you can see a picture of us from our recent travels to Richmond, if that entices you.
Absolutely. That's a great tease.
Yeah. So, Kiernan, there's something that you wanted to give a shout out to today.
Yes. Well, Ryan, as you said, this is our big first promotion because I really want to talk about this podcast. So obviously, our notoriety in the travel podcast arena has grown of late. We were lucky enough to be featured on the Apple Discovery part of the website that helps people find great podcasts. And there's another great podcast that I want to encourage our audience to give a listen to. It's called Travel Tales by Afar. And their thing is they celebrate the trips that transform us. And this season, they're sending people, writers, comedians, playwrights. It's like they're describing us, Ryan.
I know.
Out into the world to explore life's big questions. We're going to hear from an Australian playwright who journeys to Queensland in search of living dinosaurs and some quality time with her big sister.
That's mean to call her sister a dinosaur.
Ryan. We'll road trip to Canada with J.R. Harris, a.k.a. the greatest traveler you've never heard of, and we'll wander the streets of Cartagena with a Colombian-American comedian who wonders, am I Colombian enough? I think you were wondering that when you were wandering around Cartagena, weren't you, Ryan?
And I've never been to Cartagena, but
really?
Yeah, no, it's on my list. Yeah,
but you've been to Colombia.
I have. Well, we
used to go to Cartagena.
I've done Bogota, Medellin. The next time, Cartagena.
All right. Well, listen.
On my list.
When you do, I want you to load up your podcaster of choice. Well, not your podcaster of choice. your podcast listening device of choice with a bunch of travel tales by afar. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, definitely. Check that out wherever you listen to podcasts.
But for now, you're listening to this podcast Out of Office. And Ryan, we got a lot to go to if we're going to get all the way to Paraguay. So I think it's time for us to take off.
Tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Ryan, I have to say, I feel that this is maybe uniquely the episode where I do not have almost any background in this, so I'm going to really need you to take me through the basics.
You're not gonna jump in with some of your own thoughts around some of these sites. So
I'll have questions.
Sure. No, you always do, and I hope to have answers.
You never do.
So we'll start with Asunción, which is the capital of Paraguay. It's a pretty big city, 2.8 million metro. It directly borders Argentina. Like you can see Argentina from the roofs of the tallest buildings in Asunción.
Here's a Paraguayan Sarah Palin over here.
It's a city that you can really do over the weekend. Lots of folks will fly in and spend a night there before heading to two of the sites that we're not going to cover today. But these are these massive Jesuit ruins, which, sounds like something you and I should do together.
Yeah, hold on. You're telling me there's Jesuit ruins and we're not going to be talking about that? Do you know my interest area, Ryan?
Oh, look, if I tried to figure out a way to make it there in any way that made sense, but it is definitely a destination.
Is it far away?
It's quite a few hours away, and it's you've got to like plan your travel with some groups, and it's like a whole thing. But very popular.
You have to do a modest amount of planning. So Ryan was like,
I was just in the city, living those Asunción nights. And there's also these famous falls that border several countries, Agazu Falls, and folks go to see that a lot. And Asunción's like a good entrance point for that. It sits right on the Paraguay River, which is a good thing for it because it's the only South American country to never have a coast. So
never have a coast.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Because Bolivia once had a coast, and then through a series of
took it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Through a series of wars, they lost their coast, so they don't have a coast. But poor Paraguay never had a coast, so they always relied on that Paraguay River to get them to the.
It's ironic because there's agua right in the name.
It was aspirational. Like they really wanted a coast, They had some aspirational leaders, which we'll talk about. Not good leaders necessarily, but certainly
on the search for a coast.
On the search for a coast. So jumping into the city, the sort of the main tourist section where a lot of the historic sites and some of the restaurants are is Cathedral. This is sort of the main administration neighborhood where all the government buildings are, some of the little parks, restaurants. It's where you're going to kind of walk around to see some of the sites that we're going to talk about today. I want to flag to folks, if you try to use like the 36 hours in Asunción from the Times or any of the other big publications, they haven't been updated in a while. And things have definitely changed post-pandemic in Paraguay. A lot of the restaurants recommended are no longer there. Some of the sites are still closed due to reopen. But just be aware that this is a city that doesn't have a huge tourist infrastructure. So I, double check the times of things, etc. Is a good thing to do.
Did you find yourself trying to go to places that you couldn't get to?
There was definitely a couple places I tried to visit that in theory and based on most of the available evidence were open. But then when I got there, I was met by men who big strong Paraguayan army men who told me they were closed.
If they were seriously closed.
They were really closed. So that's something to be aware of. But the stuff I'll talk about today open as at least October of this year. So you've got that. I think one of the centerpieces of Asunción is this really beautiful pink palace, the Palacio de las Lopez. And this is a palace that was built by this guy named Francisco Lopez. And we're going to talk about him a bit throughout the pod because he was really the guy who single-handedly destroyed Paraguay in the mid-1800s. He launched this crazy war, the Triple Alliance War against Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. Each country big enough to defeat Paraguay on its own. Yeah. The combined forces of those three countries, obviously, poor Paraguay with no coast, really didn't have a really good shot against these guys. And he sort of invented this. There was really kind of no reason for this war to happen. He's a major character, though, in Paraguayan history, and he'll come up a lot. So we'll talk more about him. But he had this palace built. Well, his father started it. His father was, quote unquote, an elected leader. His son took over. That gives you a sign that perhaps he wasn't really elected, but that's to be debated. But essentially, his father built this palace for his son, who was a general at the time, to live in. The son never got to live in it, though, because he started a big war, and he was killed before the palace was completed.
What was his goal in this crazy war?
It was like his goal was like to keep like the Uruguayans from crossing over Paraguay when they were trying to like do some kind of there wasn't any reason for this war. It was a
modest border dispute that just went crazy.
Went way out of hand, and he had all these delusions of grandeur. He had spent all this time in Europe, and he saw himself as like a leader who was going to expand the Paraguayan empire and all this stuff, which he definitely was not. He was not that leader, and he instead launched a war that killed the majority of men in Paraguay at the time.
Lord,
I know, really not a great guy. But it's a really beautiful building. When I saw it, unfortunately, half of it was covered in scaffolding because they were doing some restoration, but the other half, which I'll share on the Insta, really beautiful, really well maintained. It looks beautiful at night. They've got some really fun lighting, and it definitely has that European vibe that he was going for when he was having these administrative buildings built.
And can you go inside?
You can't go inside. Okay. You might be able to at some point, but right now you can't. Mm-hmm. But there's a really cool way to see it. So you can see it from the street. It's got big gardens. But across the street from it is this little kind of art community. It's made up of like 6 or 7 old houses that have been sort of partitioned off into a complex where there's like a cafe, a couple galleries. There's a little museum on the urban history of Asunción. And there's a great viewing area of the palace. And this is Manzana de la Riviera. And it's a lovely little place to visit. So I would say go take a look at the palace from the outside, and then sort of go across the street into this museum. Check out, some of the various galleries. There's a contemporary art gallery, and like I said, the history one, which will give you an idea of, what Paraguay looked like and how it expanded, and this beautiful viewing area of the palace. So that's the best way, I think, to experience the palace. Now, after hearing about Francisco Lopez and how crazy he was, you're definitely going to want to visit the big mausoleum basically dedicated to him that he had built.
Sure.
Called the National Pantheon of Heroes. So
modest.
Very modest, very modest. He brought in, of course, an Italian architect and to design this beautiful chapel. Wasn't actually finished because of the war. And so it sat in scaffolding for 70 years. Many buildings in Brooklyn, I feel similar about. And it wasn't until after 1936 that it was able to become a pantheon where these heroes of Paraguay would be buried. And he is one of those heroes. Again, like, you know, I feel like in 30 years that'll be something they maybe reconsider. But it's a beautiful little mausoleum that you can go inside. You can see the various graves and statues. And one of the really fun parts is in front of the palace, the Pantheon. During the day, there are armed, uniformed Paraguayan soldiers that do sort of a changing of the guard. And I saw that. That was one of the sights to see in Asunción. So I saw that a couple times. But it is fun to like, you know, to see these like uniformed guards come out and do the whole kind of switching and changing of the guards that I haven't seen that many places outside of obviously London.
Sure.
And it sits on one of the sort of main parks with some statues and some coffee shops and some German beer gardens. Kieran, you might be a student enough of history to know why there's quite a bit of German influence in Paraguay.
Oh, dear. Did a lot of them escape over there? Yeah.
There was a lot of German immigration before and after the war. And there are famous Nazi figures who lived in Paraguay.
Oh, Lord. Is there a lot of like German food and beer around?
There's definitely German food and German beer. They had, and we'll talk a little bit about him in a minute. They had basically a German dictator for a bunch of years. So it is German influence is definitely something that exists in Paraguay. And you see a lot of German bars. And I heard a lot of German, more German than English, which was everyone in my hotel was German.
How fascinating.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So that is definitely something to check out. And then sort of the last historical site in this area of Cathedral, besides the cathedral, which you should check out, which is a beautiful cathedral built in the 1800s, looks very like a lot of the sort of the Spanish type cathedrals that you'll see around South America, but it's also there. I didn't get a chance to go inside, but it's a beautiful building. And another site to see if you're interested in history is the Casa de la Independencia, which is quite a word, a lot of syllables there.
You got through it.
Yeah. So
after 3 or 4 edits.
So obviously, Paraguay was controlled by the Spanish for many years, but it was one of the countries to gain its independence pretty early. And this house is where the revolutionaries would meet to plan sort of the coup against the Spanish government. So they've restored the house to its original splendor. You know, it's sort of a normal style house that you would have seen back then in the early 1800s. But they've got a lot of historical documents, original furnishings. It's really interesting, even if you're not really connected to the historical aspect of it, just to see sort of what those houses look like in the colonial period in Asunción is really interesting. And then they have this sort of like entrance to this entrance to the house that's on the side. It's like a side road that's been sealed off. And this is actually the side road where all the men, after they decided, okay, tonight is the night, we're going to take the castle. We're going to take over the government. They walk down this alleyway. And so that alleyway is sort of iconic, and a lot of people taking photos there outside of the house. But one of the cool things about this revolution was they basically went to the president's house and they said, hey, this is a bunch of important men from Asunción, and we are taking over today. And it was actually one of the only bloodless coups, bloodless revolutions against the Spanish in the Americas. So,
wow, interesting.
Yeah, that's something they're really proud of. There's a lot of other non-bloodless things that happened in Paraguay later on, but in that moment,
they made up for it.
Yeah, cooler heads prevailed. So this was, it's a cool house to see, and it's interesting to sort of read about these various figures. Not, one of the things I'll flag is, this is not a city where they've translated a lot of the signs and a lot of the notes and the things in museums into English. So as much kind of pre-reading as you can do, or be prepared to whip out your Wikipedia while you're in the house if you want to read more about these folks, because there isn't a lot of English to consume there. Two other things I'll talk about that are sort of in the more central area before jumping to a little excursion that I took that was fun.
Is it to the Jesuit ruins?
No, that was too much of an excursion. The Museo de las Memorias. Now, this is one of those memory museums, tolerance museums, and you see these in Eastern Europe where they sort of chronicle the dictator and the crimes that the dictator made against his own people. They had a dictator, Strassener, who, believe it or not, was of German heritage. And he ruled for an astonishingly long time, 1954 to 1989. That is a run.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so he was overthrown by a coup in 89.
Bloodless?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of coups happening in 89. That was quite a year for coups. But this guy was really bad news, brutal dictator, tortured people and dissidents and intellectuals, sort of the playbook. This is a house where the secret police this museum is where his secret police were actually based. So you can tour some of the actual cells that he used, see some of the different equipment, and really read about how brutal his regime was. One of the interesting artifacts they have there is this truck, and this was this kind of dreaded truck that everyone in Asunción knew was the secret police truck. And when it would pull up beside you, that was not a good thing. So they've actually got the original one there. So it's, I didn't know a lot about this history, and in researching, before and after, and for this episode, it does seem like, unfortunately, the U.S. was a supporter of this guy. They've got pictures of him and Henry Kissinger
that tracks.
Yeah, I know. So, really, Paraguay's had a rough time between the insane Lopez family that ruled for years, took them into that war in the 1800s, to this dictator that ruled for almost 40 years, this brutal sort of regime. So, they've only had in the last, 30, 35 years, a more kind of stable democratic government. And that always is something, when you're in a place where in your lifetime it was ruled by a dictator, it's just a strange thing to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, when you're teaching me a lot about history I'm not familiar with. So what's like the prep work you do? I mean, do you mostly just Wikipedia? Do you watch a bunch of YouTube videos? Do you read a bunch of books? Like, how did you seem very well versed in like at least the broad strokes of this history. I'm just curious how you catch up. Yeah,
well, so typically I'll read a bunch before I go to a place, and then I'll learn some stuff, and then I'll fill in the gaps after. With Paraguay, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of like popular writing around the history. Specifically like the Triple Alliance War, like there isn't like a lot in English that's great about it. I listened to a couple really good podcasts on the history of that, and I read an excellent novel, which I am about to sort of jump into, that gave me a lot of background specifically on the 1800s and the Triple Alliance War. And this was a novel, 2004 novel that won the National Book Award, called The News from Paraguay by Lily Tuck. Mm-hmm. And it is about young Francisco Lopez and his time in Europe. He spent a lot of time in Europe, growing ideas that he would bring back unsuccessfully to Paraguay. And he met this woman, this Irish woman in France, named Eliza Lynch. And Eliza Lynch was sort of like a courtesan. She had moved from Ireland to Paris. She had made friends with some people who were, kind of attached to the royal family. And she was very interested in making her way in the world. So when she met this young, handsome Paraguayan prince, she was like, hey, this is an opportunity. But, as all opportunities are, there are positives and negatives. The negative was she had to leave Paris and go to Asunción, which was a brutal voyage. at the time. Of course, there's no coast, so she has to land in Argentina, and it's a whole thing. Asunción back then, they had no opera house, it had no theater. She was coming from Paris, so she was used to the finer things in life. And so, she was sort of part of his mentality, or has long been suspected to be part of Lopez's mentality, that he had to expand and make Paraguay this big, great place. Mm-hmm. So this story all goes to the main cemetery in Paraguay, Cementerio de la Rocoleta, dates from the 1800s. And it's really this giant maze that sort of reminds you of a New Orleans cemetery, because a lot of the mausoleums are above ground. It's difficult. You can't kind of see around you because everything's so tall. So you're walking through these rows and rows of these various crypts and mausoleums in different states of disrepair. So there's definitely a section where people are still buried and everything is kind of new and clean. But as you walk deeper into this massive cemetery, it gets more and more sort of decrepit. Mm-hmm. Really spooky place. But the reason that I went there was because I wanted to see where Eliza Lynch was buried. So Eliza Lynch moves to Asunción. She's there throughout the entirety of the war. She never leaves her husband's side. She cares for the troops. She's sort of like the Evita of Paraguay. When Lopez is killed and deposed by the Brazilians, she is forced into exile with her family, and she moves back to Paris and basically dies in total poverty and obscurity.
Wow.
So it takes years and years and years of governmental back and forth before they're finally able to get her remains taken back to Paraguay. And
so the people of Paraguay wanted her buried in Paraguay.
They really did. Her historical legacy, from the reading, has gone all over the map. She was a villain in her day after the war, because people had thought that she had really pushed him to do it. But then upon better examination of the historical record, that doesn't really seem to be the case. And then now she's looked upon as somebody who stuck by the side of the country and was, with the soldiers and caring for people as like a nurse and just really an engaged, very cool woman. She did all sorts of fun things, like when she was there's this time when she went out on a boat and she was with all the ladies of Asunción who wouldn't recognize her as like real royalty because she was Irish. And so she gets out on the boat and then she only serves a meal for herself. And so everybody had to sit there in the really hot heat of the Paraguayan river and just watch her eat while she, so she was fun. She was sort of a wild.
Yeah, she sounds great.
Yeah, she was great. So you can go and find her grave. It was definitely interesting, especially after I'd read Lily's excellent novel, The News from Paraguay, which I really recommend folks read if they're going to the country, because there's so much history in it and these characters that you'll come to know.
And you found the grave.
I found the grave.
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I'll post a picture of it in the. So it was. There's no map or anything. So in the U.S., when you kind of find a grave of somebody important, there's all these websites that are like find a grave, and you can it'll show you a map of the graveyard, an exact number. That doesn't exist in Paraguay. So I was literally walking around to various actual grave diggers, and saying in Spanish like "Donde es?" and then holding my phone with a picture of her grave that I found on Wikipedia. And it was sort of like I had to go. I went all around. Somebody would point me some way, and I would walk until I found another man. I would ask, and I would get closer each time. And so it took about an hour and a half. When in reality it was right by the entrance. So I had passed it.
Oh wow!
And gone deeper.
Damn.
Yeah, but they definitely put it there.
They're probably messing with you since you're supposed to be saying "Donde está."
Probably. They were very nice men. I've never spoken to a grave digger, nor 15 of them in a single afternoon. But I did find it, and I was very satisfied when I finally did. And the last of the sort of history museums, and I think you'll find this really interesting, is the Museo de la Estación Central. And And one of the things that Lopez did was he was obsessed with trains. And so he had one of the first train lines built in Paraguay. So the first one in South America in Paraguay. This is like 1857, which is really early. And he had gone to the United Kingdom on his travels and met these British guys who he brought over to build. And they ran this railway, all these Brits did, for 30, 40 years. So it's a really interesting history. It's no longer in service, unfortunately, although there have been talks about getting it back going. But you can actually tour this old train station. They've turned it into a lovely museum. Some of the old locomotives there, including the original one from 1861, which is very cool to see. And the presidential car, there's quite a few kind of old cars to see. I love old train stations. So this was sort of a step back in time. And
is it sort of a grand old station? I mean, does it feel like European inspired?
No, it definitely, I think he was running out of cash by that point.
Putting money into the rails, not the station.
Yeah, into the palace, into the National Cathedral for the Heroes. He'd spent a lot of cash. The war.
Yeah.
But so it's not grand, but it is cool, and it's one of those historic museums where they haven't done a lot of renovations, so it does actually feels like an old building that has like information, but you don't feel like it's been polished up and you're in something fake.
That's cool. I like it.
So I definitely recommend, if you're a train nerd, to check that out. And then outside of that, and unofficially, there's just a bunch of old locomotives and trains just sitting around the museum in various states of disrepair. That's sort of the phrase for Asunción. So I walked around and I got a couple great pictures of some old kind of just really abandoned locomotives. So a cool thing, cool place to explore. Do it during the day. Asunción is a safe enough city walking around during the day, but just folks should be wary in the evenings. So there are a handful of art museums, art galleries, none that I would really put on the must-see list, with the exception of Museo del Barro. Now, this is a private museum that you have to take an Uber to. It is out in sort of the kind of more upscale sort of suburbs of Asunción. But it was a private collection that's turned into this really kind of cool art museum. It's got a mix of pre-Columbian art, modern Paraguayan art, and even like young kind of contemporary hip stuff. I was impressed with it. I've seen a lot of the pre-Columbian art, especially on this most recent trip, but it was cool to see a good collection of Paraguayan artists, both from the last 100 years and folks who are living and working now. And so I'll post some of those photos. There was a really weird sculpture of 9/11, of the Twin Towers built out of computer chips, which I don't quite understand the meaning of, but I have to say,
kind of an odd place for it to be.
Everything about it was odd, but that is sort of the Asunción way. There's a room that's decorated like you're in a big circus tent.
I like the sound of that one.
That you can sort of lay down in the middle of and feel like you're in this sort of weird sort of cartoony circus. So, it's definitely interesting. And some of the other art museums and galleries are really small and don't have much of a collection. So I was happy to find this and spend the afternoon there. And before we jump into food, I want to just give a shout out to sort of the one hipstery neighborhood.
Of course, always seeking out the Bushwick of Paraguay.
Loma San Geronimo, which is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, and it's really been decorated in a really interesting way. You can walk around this neighborhood in an hour. If you want to grab a drink or something, there are a couple kind of they were way too straight for me, but kind of bars where young people hang out on the rooftops here. But it's a cool neighborhood. It's a really it's one of those neighborhoods where there's really tight alleyways with a lot of tiles and murals, and but it's not huge. I mean, you can do the whole thing in a solid hour, but it's definitely something worth seeing. It's where a lot of sort of the hipstery things are, and just kind of outdoor art and kind of interesting architecture. And it's kind of a step back in time.
That sounds fun. No gay neighborhood.
There's not, and there's no gay life to speak of in the great city of Asunción. It is very conservative Catholic in that way. So that's sort of the cultural sites, and some of the history inside of Asunción. And when we jump into food now, this is not a city that has sort of a richly developed fine dining culture. There is one place that I want to shout out, Curry. And this is a South American, Paraguayan sort of fusion restaurant. It's a beautiful build. It kind of spills into the outside of this very fancy, mostly residential neighborhood. And it was started by a husband and wife team who met at Central in Lima.
Oh,
so it's got a great pedigree. It is the only place with a good wine list that I found in the city, and the food was awesome. I actually ate dinner there twice. I was there for 8 nights, and I ate dinner at this place twice because I enjoyed that. There was a pork cheek that was amazing, and I just love the vibe of it. And this would be something that would be weird in sort of a non-Asunción context, but they had a couple house cats that were just kind of walking around, which
you had me up until that cat comment.
They were very clean and they were lovely, lovely looking cats. So definitely, I would recommend this place if you're looking for a really high quality meal when you're in Asunción. It has not made the top 100 yet in Latin America, but they're on the world's best discovery, which means that they're watching them. And I definitely think they deserve a slot on that list. And then a couple more kind of low key recommendations. I had really low expectations for this place called Pizzeria Javori. And I went on like a Thursday night, and I have to say, I really enjoyed the pizza. It was absolutely packed. It was like the most happening place I went to in all of Asunción. Like,
wow. Every
table was packed with like families and couples, and people were just having like a great time. It's one of these pizza places that is very common, like 90s, 80s nostalgia themed. And it's just clearly beloved by locals. I had to wait to sit, which was not something that I experienced anywhere else in my Asunción journey. So if you're just looking for a nice kind of low key, well, not low key because it's high energy, but just a nice kind of chill spot to have some pizza and some beer, that is a place that I would recommend.
I'm waiting for some German food here. You're taking me to pizzerias.
So there is this type of bread that is made in Paraguay that is called Paraguayan soup or Sopa Paraguaya. It is not a soup; it's a bread. But the history goes that that this corn soup was the favorite of this corn and cheese soup was the favorite of one of the earlier dictators, and he went to this restaurant and he ordered the corn soup. And the chef went back to get it, and he realized to his horror that he had let it cook too long, and it had become bread, like a moist bread, and so he cuts it up.
That's how that works. But
I know. So he cuts it up and he brings it back to the guy, and he says, "This is what we call soup in Paraguay." And the guy loved it, and it became sort of a national dish.
It sounds really good. Cheesy cornbread with onions. That sounds really good.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's great. I had it like every day for the week. And one of the best places to eat this and eat kind of really traditional Paraguayan, which has that like definitely has some German inspiration, like that Milanese kind of situation going on, a schnitzel situation, is Lido Bar. And Lido Bar has been around since 1953. It is a classic, I would almost say Paraguayan diner. It was bustling, very bright, lots of people drinking coffee and milkshakes and eating various Paraguayan dishes. So it was like a happening place. This is the one place that Anthony Bourdain visits in his episode on Paraguay. His episode on Paraguay is all about how his ancestor moved to Paraguay, and he's trying to track down what happened. I remember that. Yeah. So he doesn't really do a whole lot else in the city. But definitely an interesting episode to watch. And he eats at this place, Lido Bar. I will flag there are 2 of them. One of them is brand new, and you don't want to go there because it doesn't have any of the history, and it's sort of just like a touristy version of the original. The original location is on Independiente, which is down closer in the area we were talking about with the palace and the big cathedral. So I had a good time there. It's definitely worth visiting. And the last food thing I'll shout out is they're a big fan. So Paraguay's biggest sort of industry at this point is beef. They raise a ton of cattle. They have a really serious barbecue culture. So like when you get invited to a picnic in Paraguay, the family invites you over, and it's all about like barbecuing meats. So it's a big thing in Paraguay. I didn't get invited to any barbecues, unfortunately. But they do have a very similar style to a Brazilian steakhouse.
Oh, sure.
And that's sort of the style of their steakhouses. And the one that is best known is Paulista Grill. And it's a really big Brazilian style steakhouse. They bring the meat to the table. You can go up to the buffet and get like really crazy desserts. Every time I ate there twice, and each time I ate there were multiple priests, which I thought was interesting.
Nice.
So,
oh man.
Yeah. So you get your priest in there. They also have a lot of biker gangs. I don't know if gangs is the right word. Biker groups. Is a big thing in Asunción, and so there's a lot of bikers who eat there too. And I feel like
Meaning
bikers,
on bikes or motorcycles?
motorcycle. No, not bike. No, not bikers like cyclists. No.
Okay.
Very different vibe than I'm poorly describing it. No,
Sure,
motorcycle men. Yeah, motorcycle men who enjoy their unlimited cuts of beef. You know, and who doesn't?
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
The food part of the episode is really intense. That Sopa Paraguaya is really sounding pretty appealing.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. There just isn't a lot of options. So that's why I ate at some of these places more than
Several
once.
times.
Yeah. And then this coffee shop that I would be remiss to not mention because I worked there, I read there, I ate lunch there several times. I drank a lot of coffee there. They've got a gallery, kind of a gallery situation going on where they're switching out a local artist every couple months. So there was a really fun exhibit up, and it's called Café Consolado. And this is the definition of a hipster coffee shop. I could have been. It's actually kind of cooler than most of the ones around me in Bushwick, and the breakfast sandwiches were killer. So that's always something one should look for in a country. So check that place out. It's also kind of down in the main area where you'd be walking around, seeing the palace and all. You can stop there for lunch or for a coffee. Definitely recommended.
Well, we're thankful to them for their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi was good. And that is my trip around Asunción. I hope folks learned something. It's an interesting city. I'm really glad I went, and it's definitely a city that you really go and explore. I haven't felt, like I was in a place where it was, so when you go to Bogota, you go to Mexico City, these places have big tourist infrastructures. They're made for people who speak English to come and like do all this stuff. Asunción, I felt like I was like in Eastern Europe or something. It was a cool vibe, and it was nice to really feel like I was out of my comfort zone a bit.
Yeah, it feels like really off the beaten track. I love it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of great, interesting history there.
Yeah. Well, with all that, I think it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
Well, Ryan, we're here in the last stop. This is the final segment of the show, the last segment of the show. That's why it's called the last stop. And it's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the People's segment. And that's because it's a time for us to come together to meditate on the nature of travel. And we come and we bring one thing each week. We something to share, give unto ourselves. And we give, for example, anything. It could be a memory, could be a piece of gear, could be a plan that's upcoming, could be a plan that fell through, could be an anecdote, could be something you read or saw on the old streaming service. But it has to fit one piece of criterion. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us even during the workaday week. So Ryan, I have to ask you, as I ask you every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kieran. This goes back to one of our first episodes, how to buy luggage.
Oh, yeah.
And I really should have re-listened to this episode because, I've had this luggage, which is it is the largest you're allowed to have as a carry-on. So it's 20 inches tall.
Uh-huh.
And I use it all the time. I check it. It's been around the world with me now for, I think, 6 years. So it's banged up as hell. It was a Samsonite. It cost me like $125. So it's done its duty. And I have this big trip coming up to Panama, where it's going to be, a lot of excitement. And so I figure, you know what? It's time for a new suitcase. New year, new suitcase. So I went online. New me. Yeah, went online. There's a lot of great holiday deals right now. So everything was like 40% off. So I'm like, I gotta pick this up. And I wanted to get a bigger bag for longer trips that since I checked my bag mostly anyway. So not getting out a measuring tape or even like kind of considering it, I just bought the biggest checked-in bag you could buy. And it arrives 2 days ago. And it is
like larger than your apartment in New York.
It is officially 28 inches. I think that's bullshit. It's bigger than that. It is ludicrous. It is a ludicrous bag. I went and I found out that the length, if you add the length and the width and the height of a bag, it can't be more than 62 inches to check. Did you know this? This is called the 62-inch rule. This bear of a bag is 64 when you add that up.
God.
So it's literally too big to check. How is this even a bag anyone would ever buy? They should just fly.
Too big to check.
Too big to check. You can check it if you pay. They pointed out to me when I wrote to them, I can pay overages. But who wants a bag that you pay overages to check
every single time?
Yeah, no, thanks. Also, if you buy this bag, you should be on some sort of watch list because it is basically a body bag.
Sure.
Like you wouldn't order this bag overnight unless you had something to dispose of.
No, this is like what they use in the hospital morgue.
It is a nightmare. I thought it would fit in my closet. Of course, it comically did not.
Larger than your closet.
So it is going back today, and I've bought
You're gonna have to get a special pickup to come haul it back to the store.
You have no idea.
Can you please post a picture of this on the Instagram?
I will.
It's so good, Ryan.
And so
I can't believe you didn't even measure it out.
So I bought a 24-inch bag, which I've looked at Chase's bag. It's the same. I think it's going to be the perfect size. It gives me an additional 4 inches, which, hey, no guy ever said no to. And so that's my my last stop. Do you have a story for us, Kieran?
Do I have a last stop this week?
Do you have a
Ryan?
last stop?
Is that what you're asking? Yes, I do have a last stop this week. This is as we head into the holiday season, the gift giving season. One of my favorite go-to tricks for people who enjoy travel or who even just have a local spot that you like. This is a recommendation for a great way to get a good, very sentimental gift that's not just your typical cookie cutter, New York Times told me this is great this year kind of gift, which is go online and track down an antique postcard of a place that means something to this person or maybe something to your relationship together. So the example that I have of this is when Catherine and I went to Morocco, we visited this Roman ruins, this old Roman town called Volubilis. And a few years ago, I was at the bottom of the gift well, and I couldn't think of anything to do. And I was just on Etsy browsing around. There's specialty shops that just feature these antique postcards. And I found this awesome Volubilis postcard that I think it's from the 50s, and it's got it's a beautiful small piece of artwork. It's almost like a little painting, and had it specially framed, and it was just an excellent gift. And so I highly recommend antique postcards, but you got to get looking soon because if you want to have it framed in time for Christmas, you better get moving.
Is this eBay?
You could do eBay. eBay, you definitely get antique postcards on, but there are also, this one I remember I found particularly on Etsy. And, it's like collector shops will post their stuff.
Yeah, I always feel like Etsy is more for, I guess they do have one-off things on Etsy.
Yeah, they do. You're right. Etsy can seem like it's more craftier stuff, but there are actually a lot of antique goods list on there. A lot of used bookshops will list on Etsy.
Oh, that's cool.
Always worth checking out.
That's some good things to know. And that's a great idea. I can think of some antiques postcards that I would love to have.
So, Ryan, what episodes do we have coming up?
So next week on December the 6th, we've got a return trip to one of Kiernan's classic episodes.
Obscure Museums of London, Part 1.
Part 1.
That's when the idea was born. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So I don't know that we've even done a part 2 yet, but one day we will.
No, I think there's a part 2 in the archives. I'm pretty sure. So that we're probably going to have to follow up with that one.
This is how you know that we've been podcasting a long time.
Yeah, I'm quite sure. And I've got a 3 already. And then, Ryan, you know what? I've decided I'm not going to wait till the new year. I want to do New Haven on December 13th. So we're going to finally do My City Guide to New Haven.
Oh, what better way to ring in the pre-New Year than New Haven?
They've got a good Christmas tree in the green.
And some pizza I hope to hear about.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be Christmas without it.
Well, until then, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
The seat taken. Anything travel related on the old wish list this Christmas, Ryan?
I just got with my huge bag of luggage came a luggage weight that I can weigh my luggage before I leave the house now.
Oh, a scale.
A scale, yeah.
I thought you were talking about a weight. I was like, I think that thing's going to be heavy enough, Ryan.